Welcome to Design Santa Barbara. This week we are in Santa Barbara Design Center and I'm pleased to welcome Kevin Bourke from Bourke Wealth Management. Last week, Kevin's wife Diane sat down to talk to us about her organization business, Piece of a Space. And now Kevin is here to tell us about how you can make your money last in Santa Barbara. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, you met my wife last week, Diane. She's an organizer, as you mentioned, and it was a great episode.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So you know that about me. I just got married in November.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
I'm still a newlywed.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then I have two daughters, 24 and 21, and Diane has two sons. And then when it comes to business, I was licensed as a financial advisor in May of 1987, so I'm going on 32 years.
So what led you to Santa Barbara, actually?
So I grew up in Woodland Hills, and we would come up to Santa Barbara for parties and dates. We used to go to a restaurant called Rocky Galanti's, which is where the California Hotel is now. It's Finney's now.
Okay.
This is going way back. And there was a little man that would sing Italian opera to the girls, so it was fun. Or we'd go to the Grill, which is now Lucky's. It used to be called the Grill. But I would see men walking around downtown wearing suits. And I knew that they must live here because nobody comes to Santa Barbara and wears a suit. Right? On vacation.
That's right.
So I just thought, you know, how do those guys get to do that? How do they get to live in Santa Barbara? And not that I want to wear a suit, but I want to live in Santa Barbara, so how do I figure that out? So before my 40th birthday, I just made that a goal. I want to spend my 40s living in Santa Barbara, and I moved here just before I turned 40.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I'd love to hear that. Yes, nice. Tell me about Bourke Wealth Management.
Well, Bourke Wealth Management, we are on Cannon Perdido Street, and there's two advisors and a couple of admin, and we manage people's money and do financial planning. So while some companies just do the investment management portion of it, meaning they just buy and sell stocks and bonds and mutual funds, we help people with everything. So, for instance, I'm not a tax preparer, but I interact with their tax preparer to make sure that we're, you know, doing the right thing that best we can tax-wise, or their estate planning attorney or whoever. So we really try to be the sort of the CFO of an individual's, you know, financial life, and that, you know, that investor, that client is the CEO. But we want to be right next to them, helping with, you know, their entire financial life.
So you get the whole thing and you manage it for them so they have a peace of mind.
Exactly.
Wonderful. So what is the most important thing to look for in a financial advisor?
Well, I've thought about that, and I thought, what if I wasn't in this business? How would I help my mom find an advisor? So the first thing I would do is I would get on the CFP website, Certified Financial Planner, and I would find a certified financial planner professional somewhere in my area, because that designation indicates that somebody has experience. You have to have several years experience, and they have to pass some really hard tests. And so I would know, okay, at least this person has demonstrated their commitment to the industry. I would also ask, how many years have you been an advisor? So the last 10 years, since the mortgage meltdown, for example, have been pretty good years in the market. They've been relatively easy years. So I really want somebody with at least 15 years experience. And if I could get 20, I would take that too. And then probably the third main thing I would do is I would ask how they interact with the other professionals. Do you talk to the CPA, their tax preparer? Do you work with the estate planning attorney? Can you help me with, you know, with my whole financial life, as opposed, again, to just the investment management portion? I would want to know that my financial advisor knows my tax situation, because how can you don't know how to invest, you know, and do you buy something that pays tax-free income, or do you buy this investment or that investment? You can't know without knowing what the tax situation is. So I want to know how they interact with my other professionals.
That's wonderful. No, that brings up another question. You brought it up. Does your mom invest with you?
She does.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, that's one thing.
Yeah.
And secondary, is it good to have two people do the same thing you do, or just trust all your money to one person?
Well, that is a great question.
You know, I hear you always used to hear, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right. So I call hiring two advisors diversification as opposed to diversification. And I'll tell you why. I picked up a client, it's been about 10 years ago, and she had just sold a property and had to pay big capital gains. So here she's got these big capital gains, and then she has different advisors spread around because she had diversified by having different advisors. But none of them knew the whole picture, and some of them had losses built into some of the investments. So if anybody had been watching the whole picture, then they could have offset this huge gain where she paid literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital gains tax with some of the losses over here. But there was nobody, you know, seeing the whole thing. And so I find that if you're going to have different advisors, you at least need to have one that watches everything.
Okay.
Otherwise, you
One
might
be the supervisor of the risk.
Yeah, or you might be doubling up on investments. So you might have too much in this asset class or that asset class because the advisors don't know that there are other advisors out there doing the same thing.
Okay.
So you might be taking on more risk than you realize.
Me, I don't have that much money like that lady, but I watch it next time. How can someone make their money last the rest of their life? That's a big question.
That is a big question. How much time do we have?
Yes.
That's
we don't know that, but let's plan for an average life.
Yeah. Well, actually, I meant how much time do we have to talk about it? But you hit on the important part, which is how long are we going to live?
Oh, okay. I thought you said how much time I have to live, so I plan for that.
That is the important question.
Okay.
So we have to recognize that we're probably going to live a long time. People are living, 70s, 80s, 90s. I have a client who died recently just shy of her 103rd birthday.
Wow.
And so it's more important than ever to look at all the various facets of your life. For example, when should you take Social Security? That's a big question. People oftentimes think it's not worth much, but Social Security can be an important component. How much risk should you take with your investments? Meaning, do you need more equities that will grow faster?
Sorry, should they count on Social Security at all?
Well, I think Social Security they can count on. Social Security will continue to be tweaked, as it already has been, I believe, but I don't think it's going to go away. There are too many people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, baby boomers and so forth, that I don't think would stand by and let Social Security be cut completely.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they're going to do is they're going to raise the age, perhaps, like they've already done once. They might limit it in other ways. Maybe you have to be 68, for example, before you can take Social Security. Or they'll tighten up the rules like they've been doing the last few years, but I don't think it's going to go away completely.
Sorry, that was a question between the question. So you were saying, you count on Social Security?
Yeah, so how do you make your money last a lifetime? Well, you need help perhaps figuring out the appropriate amount of risk. So as an example, somebody says, well, I don't want my principal to fluctuate at all, so I'm just going to put it in the bank. Well, that's maybe fine. That's your risk tolerance, but what you're going to get from the bank is probably not going to keep up with inflation and taxes over the year. Or the years. So while we think of risk as watching our principal fluctuate, the real risk is actually running out of money because we didn't take enough risk, or we don't have the opportunity to keep up with inflation and taxes based on our investments. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So looking at the whole picture again is kind of the key to making your money last for your lifetime.
And that's why you need an advisor.
And that's why I think you need an advisor.
Thank you, Kevin. When we come back, I want to talk more about money management and retirement. We have lots more to discuss on Design Santa Barbara. Hi, I'm Michael Kurosh, and I would like to personally offer you a special thanks for supporting our show as we enter our 11th season. When you come into Santa Barbara Design Center and mention the show, we will pay the sales tax on your entire purchase, including rugs, sofas, sectionals, and accessories. Please come visit us at Santa Barbara Design Center, 410 Olive Street. And once again, thank you for supporting our show. Welcome back. This week we are with Kevin Bourke of Bourke Wealth Management, and he's sharing tips on how to make your money last a lifetime. Lifetime is a long time. But please, talking about lasting a lifetime, tell us about your book.
Well, I have a desire, a goal to help 1 million people with their money somehow. I wrote that down years ago.
1 million people?
1 million people. I'd like to help 1 million people. So I'm not there yet. But I thought, okay, so you could do that by a blockbuster movie, right? Don't know how to do that with wealth management. Or you could have a killer website, or you could write a book and reach lots of people. And so that's why I wrote the book. I thought, okay, I'm going to distill, decades of experience into something pretty readable, so it's not very long. And it covers a lot of the topics that people need to know in order to make their money last their lifetime.
I like about your modest goal of $1 million. And where can they buy the book?
Well, it's on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place to get it.
How does someone determine what they can afford to spend in retirement?
Yeah, that's probably the number one question that I get asked is how much can I afford to spend in retirement? And the answer is not obviously that simple. All of it, the answer to most of these questions is it depends, because every situation is a little different. But there is a principle on financial planning that's been used for decades, and it's a good rule of thumb, and that is that you can take about 4% of your principal annually to live off of.
4%
About
of
4%
your
principal.
Let's say you have $1 million, you can spend $40,000.
Exactly. Now, that's a rule of thumb. I don't really like rules of thumb because
It depends on who you are.
It depends. So let's say somebody, as I mentioned earlier, they took their $1 million and they just put it in the bank, earning almost no interest. Well, that's probably not going to work. It needs to be invested in a way that it will grow fast enough to keep up with that 4% withdrawal rate and a little bit more.
Like what?
Well, some sort of mix of equities like stocks and bonds and so forth that's appropriate for that person's individual situation. So you have to figure out the right mix of investments that you can sleep at night, understanding, again, that your principal is going to fluctuate. It's not going to be like in the bank where it's like this, but that's I'm going to call it the price you pay to keep up with inflation and taxes. So a way to illustrate it would be to say, I love to travel.
Yes.
I love to go to Europe. I hate turbulence, but I got to get in a plane and experience turbulence to get where I want to go. And so investing can be compared to that.
Beautiful. That's nice. Thank you. What are the key steps people should be taking to have a secure retirement?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. My single wealthiest client in my career never made more than $65,000 a year in his life.
Wow.
Now, and that was actually about mid-90s. But even then, $65,000 a year is not what you associate with a multimillionaire, right?
In Santa Barbara County, it's probably gets you to affordable housing.
Yeah, exactly. This wasn't in Santa Barbara County, but nevertheless. So here's this man with all this money. How did he do it? And along the way, he was married, and he and his wife raised 2 children. How did he do it? Well, they did it by being frugal. So it was budgeting. So in the end, I found that it's not necessarily how much you make, it's how much you spend that really makes the biggest difference. I've had clients who make $1 million a year, $2 million a year, and they have almost no assets because they're out there living la vida loca. They're driving big cars, living in big houses, taking beautiful trips. They have a great life, but they're not really saving money for retirement. So really looking at the spending side of the equation is just as important as looking at the earning side of the equation if you're really thinking about long term and how you're going to make your money last the rest of your life.
So basically save portion of your income no matter what.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be frugal, but
save
some of it. Do you feel it's wise to invest in the stock market?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. And some people simply cannot emotionally handle the ups and downs of the stock market. So for them, even if it's technically the right thing to do, so as a financial planner, I could say, no, you have to have money in the stock market. Some people just can't handle that. So we can do financial planning in a vacuum where everything is precisely the exact, correct, accurate way that it should be done, but we're emotional animals.
Yes.
And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we can handle that. So, but what I would encourage people to think about, again, is that they have to figure out a way to keep their money growing faster than inflation and taxes is going to take it away from them. And so equities, the stock market is a way to do that. Perhaps real estate is a way to do that. But there has to be something that has some growth potential for most people. So
you don't have to invest in the stock market, but is advisable.
Yeah, and everybody's risk tolerance is a little different. So some clients I have, they're 100% in equities because they're very comfortable with that. And other, maybe it's only 20% because that's all they can handle. My job is not to force my risk tolerance on the client, but rather to listen and be cognizant of what works for them.
Invest their money in their best interest as they feel comfortable
Yeah,
with.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, what is the biggest mistake people make in financial planning?
I would say the biggest mistake is just not doing it. You know, I believe that people spend more time planning their next vacation than they do planning their finances. And when you think about spending decades in retirement, let's say you retire at age 65, you might spend 30 years or so in retirement. So why would you not?
65 up to 95? You're optimistic. Nice. I like that.
Well,
Thank you.
You know, none of us want to be the proverbial bag lady or to be stuck eating cat food, right? And so even just spending some time, now maybe you hire an advisor and that advisor helps you with it, but you still have to be able to articulate your goals and what you'd like to see happen, and if you have beneficiaries, where your money you would like it to go. I mean, all those things come into play.
That's fascinating. I have lots more questions for Kevin. Stay tuned. We will have more Design Santa Barbara after the break. We live in one of the most beautiful locations in the world. I have raised my kids here. I love it here. What we offer at Santa Barbara Design Center isn't just furniture. It's a chance to turn a house into a home. What may look like a deal online, it's very different when it shows up. It's something to be said for feeling it before it becomes part of your life. We are here to help guide you through this wonderful process. We are Santa Barbara Design Center. Come start your journey with us. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. I'm pleased to have Kevin Bourke of Bourke Wealth Management with us this week. Let's learn more about how to be financially secure in Santa Barbara. My next question is, what is the best advice you can give to young people about investing?
Start early.
Start early.
Yesterday isn't soon enough, because the magic of investing really happens in the compounding over time. So I'm going to bet every one of us, our age, would say, I wish I had started earlier. I wish I had done what my parents told me to do and start with my Roth IRA contribution when I was younger, or whatever it is. Just start early and allow those savings to grow. Just whatever you can do. If it's $20 a month, just start saving, doing something.
Just put something away as you can. Now, on the other side, what's your advice for people nearing or at retirement?
Well, for one thing, pay off debt. Get rid of debt, have no debt when you go into retirement, and start to think carefully about budgeting and what it's going to look like. Do you want to travel? Do you want to, there are other things in your life you want to accomplish. So I just want to share that, for me, I've been doing this business for 30 years. And the first 10 years, I loved it. It was really fun. And then the next 10 years, I really hated it. And the reason I hated it is it just felt shallow to me. It's about money and who cares and so forth. In fact, I started other businesses. I bought other businesses. I continue my financial planning practice. But it didn't feel satisfying to me. And then about 10 years ago, I had two older women who were single, who their families came to me and they said, can you talk to our mom? Each one of them coincidentally is a very similar story. But the family said, we think she's about to do something that she's going to regret. And so I met with both of these women, again, totally separate, but similar story, and found out that they were about to do something that if they had done it, by now they would have been out on the street. And so thankfully, they listened to me. And in fact, they're both still clients. One of them I talked to today. And it was at that moment 10 years ago that I realized just how important my job is, because they've done surveys where they found that 6 out of 10 adult Americans fear running out of money more than they fear death.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when you think about that, this opportunity I have to help people in this way is satisfying. So it's not unusual for clients to tell me that they'll be sitting around the dinner table and they're talking about their doctor, or they're talking about me, and if they're not sick, they're talking about me, because that's how important my role is in their life and making sure that they can live a comfortable life. So now I love my job. I get more excited about it every day.
It seems like you like your job. That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's nice. Good to hear that. Okay. Should parents help their kids with things like college or buying a house? That question comes up a lot, actually. And
yeah.
Would like to know your take on it.
Yeah. So I just have to tell you a story. When I was 6 years old, I remember flying from Michigan. We used to go back and forth because I was born in Michigan, but we lived in California, moved here when I was 2. So I remember being 6 years old, flying in an airplane, and I was told I was expendable by the lady in charge. And so this is what I mean. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching the lady, and she's doing this demonstration with the mask, right? And she says, okay, if in the case of loss of cabin pressure, mask will drop from the ceiling, put yours on first, and then you help your children. And I thought, wow, I'm not that important in the scheme of things, aren't I? But now I know the reality is that way the parent has their mask on so that they're capable and they don't pass out of helping their child, right? So we want to help our children. Like I have 2 kids, I have 2 stepkids. So I understand that desire to help our children, but not at our own expense. So if you, for example, help them buy a house, is that going to put your own retirement in jeopardy? Because they can always go out and earn more money. You may not be able to do that at the age of 72 or 75 and so forth. So should you help your kids? Well, that's a tough question. We want to help our kids, and certainly I would help my kids in an emergency or whatever, but to help them with something like a home purchase, well, if it's going to jeopardize my retirement, I'm going to help them buy a home, and then I'm going to end up living with them at some point anyway, which is probably not what they want. So you have to be pretty judicious. Even things like co-signing for loans or insurance or things come up where you co-sign for your kids. Well, let's just say you co-sign for a car or you're on the insurance and there's an accident, your assets might be attached, right? True. And so you just have to be mindful about it while still recognizing that we all want to, of course, take care of our children.
So what I learned from you is today is depends on something. So it depends if you can help him, but don't put yourself
yeah.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you. What is the single most important piece of advice you would give to someone financially?
Well, it's the best way to answer that maybe is a story. When I was 19 years old, I was coming back from Mammoth Mountain skiing. I'm driving, and I've got 3 other people in the car, 2 of whom are parents. So we're driving about 70 miles an hour down the road, and out runs a rabbit. Well, as an inexperienced driver, I slam on the brakes, and I crank the wheel, and I do everything to miss this rabbit. And it occurred to me afterwards that I could have killed all 4 of us in the car just to miss this rabbit. Well, I certainly don't want to hit the rabbit, but these 4 souls in my car are more important. And I guess the reason I tell you that story is, and I tell it to my stepson when we drive, don't panic. So maybe the biggest mistake that people make is when they're investing and there's some hiccup in the market, they panic and they sell their investments at exactly the wrong time. And so if you can look at this, kind of step back from it and take a 30,000-foot view and realize that over time, the capital markets, meaning stocks and bonds and so forth, they just keep working. So on the short-term basis, it's hard for anybody to know what's going to happen. But long-term, the markets have shown that they continue to work in our favor. And so I guess in answer to your question again, I would say don't get too caught up in the short-term moves of your investments.
All right, that's great. Don't panic. I remember that. How can people learn more about your services?
Well, there's my website. So it's Bourke, Bourke, wealth.com, or our phone number is 805-966-2122. So going to our website, though, or getting the book off Amazon, they could find out more about my philosophy and the business and so forth.
Beautiful. I would like to thank you, Kevin, for being on our show. And if you would like to learn more about Bourke Wealth Management, please visit the website or call his office. Today on Appraisals, we have this beautiful Mille Fiori Qashqai carpet. It is 19th century, I would say probably 1870s, 1880s. It's in perfect condition. They used to be gifts of the heads of the tribe to dignitaries, to politicians, to rulers, and so on. The scheme starts at bottom, basically. Again, we have the beautiful grounds at their flowers, and in this case, tree of life starts getting roots. You have this beautiful ways that a tree of life grows in it and goes all the way to the top and blossoms. We have the beautiful cypresses. These are stylized and in beautiful symmetrical shapes. The other half is out here. We have this arch that creates that Moorish style architecture. Mille Fiori comes from his name. It means 1,000 flowers. This designs originally started in Mongol India and then Europe, and now we have it here. It goes across cultures. It's a beautiful piece of art to view. Nowadays they're rare to find because not too many of them were made to begin with, and this one is in just immaculate condition, has original ends, original sides, and very little wear because they used to be hung on the wall most of his life. I appraise this in today's fair market value between $12,000 to $15,000. Thank you for joining us this week on Appraisals. See you next week.